How you doing? I'm Nelson. I'm a licensed professional counselor and a nationally certified counselor. I work with youth and adults on a wide range of issues from depression, bipolar disorder, anxiety. I do a lot of community work and I do a lot of work with helping students in school as well.
I'm Angie D. Lee. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and intimacy coach, and I work with couples on helping them reignite passion, pleasure, and connection in their relationships.
The question is, with me doing my research,
Yeah,
educated, highly educated, very articulate.
thank you.
So I'm really curious to know this question. Were your parents married?
They were not.
They were together. And do you think that had any type of impact on the woman that you are today?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely.
Well, how though?
Yeah. I love that question. It impacted me in a lot of broken ways, but it impacted me in a lot of really healthy ways. Contrast, which is something most people don't like, really is our best friend. And so I always say as a little girl, no pun intended to everyone who raised me, but I saw a lot of contrast. I saw a lot of who I didn't want to be like. And so what that did was, and this is for the people who don't know where you want to go, don't know who you are, but you know you don't like your environment, you don't like where you're at. This could be at any age. I always say it's not where you're running to that it gets you there. Oftentimes it's what you're running from. And for me, it was me running from my contrast saying, I don't want to be that, or that. I don't know who I want to be at this point when I was a young girl. I don't know where I'm going, but I put my track shoes on, Cam, tied them up, and y'all may see these really pretty heels on today, but I say it every day, my track shoes will never come off because me running from that has gotten me to a place of, as you said, and thank you, being very educated, to being able to take care of my mother and my family, to being a doctor, to doing things that broke so many generational curses. But it also created a very broken young girl, which caused me to have to just self-reflect and take inventory on why do I behave like this, and why do I show up like this? And what is it rooted to? What is that associated to? And so for me, getting to the seeds of my harvest allowed me to really have a sense of self, of who I am, and where to come from. And then really quick, and when you do that, it allowed me to have this intense forgiveness for my mother and her addiction, because finding out who I am helped me really understand who she was. And it helped me have compassion for trauma when I started to understand how hard trauma was for me, and I wasn't even addicted to anything but my trauma, because that's all I knew. And so it's magical when you start to take the finger from here to here to here and then to here, because you get to understand you, and understanding you, you start to really have compassion for everybody, because there's nothing about me, if I understand me, that you haven't similarly either felt or experience, where I can't connect and have compassion for you in that pain pocket or in that trauma. So it's a blessing.
So basically what you're saying, you're the epitome of, she's a runner, she's a track star. She gonna run away when you get home.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I was definitely, I had to learn. I love that. That is so on point. You're 100% on point. I definitely have been the run of the track star. I had to learn, I spoke about this earlier with my makeup artist, Felicia. I had to learn what running, not running looked like. See, I didn't have to learn how to get away from you because you weren't treating me good. I didn't have to learn how to make sure you respected me and you showed up solid, because I was gonna pivot, right? Pivot and running, that's my first nature. I've been doing this all my life. I had my track shoes on. I came into the relationship with my track shoes on, and I went to bed with them with you. So they're not like they was ever off. I had to learn how to stay and evolve with. I had to learn that commitment's not a feeling, and that when I'm triggered, I have to stay committed to what I said I was gonna do, regardless of how I feel, regardless of where this relationship or this conversation triggered or took me in my pain. I couldn't let my pain tell me it's time to leave this Negro and sabotage. I had to let my healthy self say, wait a minute, let me overpower the pain, because the healing is gonna say, do you wanna be here? The pain is gonna say, you need to be here. And healed people want, pain people, trauma people need. And so for me, my trauma needed me to detach so I can be okay, because I was coming in broken already. And I had to learn how to be able to stay with my track shoes on, because they still on, but not get on the blocks, and be able to strut and take a walk. But it was a process of learning, and in my process of being a runner, it enabled me to call off 2 weddings, and glad that I made those decisions. But it helped me not stay longer where I wasn't supposed to be. So my running helped, but it also is a weapon.
So that was a lot. So honestly, I tend to not really like the celebrity doctors and the celebrity gurus, because I think that they have this thing where they kind of cross a line from being self-reflective to engaging in a lot of self-praise. And when I look at what she was saying, there was certain themes came out for her. The theme of being a track star, about running from things. I thought that was a big part of her life. But also the fact that everything she was describing was how she came through something, how she's already on the other side of things. When I think about an interview, and I kind of compared that to Tyrese's interview. You talk about yourself, you talk about the highs and the lows in your life, but you don't go into this place where you create this air of, I'm already superior because I've already done the work, I've already accomplished all of this. And I felt like even from the beginning of that interview with Cam, she tried to establish herself as the intellectual authority. And I thought as the interview went on, that's where a lot of kind of like the rub came from, because when you can compare and contrast the questions that she was asked with her responses, she would go on so many different rabbit holes and mix it in with teaching moments and giving nuggets and things like that, when Cam just asked a very simple question. So those were some of the things that I kind of immediately picked up on her in the beginning.
I think that's definitely a good observation too. Like just the way that you broke that down in terms of that dichotomy between, you being this professional and this therapist or a doctor, if you will, but then also you're a celebrity. And so you're kind of tugging between 2 worlds. So you're trying to, like you said, maintain your, the fact that you're trying to maintain that we have like ethical standards and principles and different things that we abide by in our profession. But then in the celebrity world, all bets are off, right? Because that's when you say, it doesn't matter if, you're getting bad publicity or good publicity. It's publicity. So as a celebrity, that's what they're focused on. And so I could definitely see how there was some challenges with trying to balance the 2 for her. Like, which way do I show up in that question? So now it's just a whole bunch of like word vomiting, if you will. And does it really answer the question at hand? So I can definitely see what you meant by that, for sure.
So also, when I kind of took a look at what was some of the things that she said, and of course I mentioned the theme of her running. I'm trying to think about how I want to frame this. I mentioned that she didn't really answer the questions. She came off a little condescending. And you talked about that celebrity world where, all bets are off. It's interesting because being in that celebrity world, the focus becomes you. It's my status, my journey, my healing, my. But when you are, and it's kind of a question for you, when you're a therapist, for me, when I work with a client, I really don't spend time giving advice.
Exactly.
90%, maybe even more of what I do has to do with listening. Like it's not a teaching position. You know what I mean? Like it's walking alongside somebody in the mess that they're in and helping them navigate that, not telling them this is where you go, this is what you do, this is how I made it over. What do you think about that?
I am in so much agreement with you on that because even the questions that we ask in our sessions, a lot of the times it has to do with that client really just trying to process what's been going on in their lives, reflect, and then kind of draw their own conclusions out of it. And so a lot of times when you're in that celebrity seat, again, you're trying to give advice, you're trying to, I guess, come off as an expert. And so I have to kind of really play up myself. But like you said, in sessions, we're focused on where is this client at mentally? Where are they at emotionally? Where can we meet them at first? Where is that starting point for them? And then ask the necessary questions to allow them to really think through things like, I never really thought of why I was doing that, as opposed to someone telling me that's why I'm doing that. But like asking the necessary questions that allows them to navigate that space within themselves and draw their own conclusions. And then ask them, okay, now from that conclusion, do you feel that that's a healthy approach? Do you feel that that served you well, or has that been to your detriment? And so that allows for them to say, okay, yes, I think that served me well, or no, I think that that's been horrible because look at what's happening in my life. But then they're responsible for their results through that navigation, And like you said, again, through this type of interview, the highlight, even though it seems like Cam was supposed to be in the seat, we really kind of focused in on her background and different things of that nature. So,
yeah, and to her credit, she did talk about being self-reflective and having to look at the why she does certain things to do, why she thinks certain ways that she thinks. But again, it kind of went back to, even though she did that, she also framed it along with, but I'm also gotten through all of that. I've already done all of that work. So I'm just at a different level now. So that was just one thing. I didn't sit well with me in the beginning.
Yeah. And that's, again, our therapeutic background, right? Because, we were thinking about her title and what she's there to represent. That's the only reason why. Now, if she would have came on there as the producer, of Teen Mom or, what have you, then we would be talking about that. But if you're coming in as the professional, as the therapist, as the one with that doctorate degree in psychology, I would think that people that are viewing it are looking to her for some understanding around, okay, this is why this is being, manifested in my life. Maybe it's these things that have been occurring and talking about it from almost like a global standpoint, as opposed to me, it seemed like it was kind of only addressing a small demographic, and that part too, I felt a little bit uncomfortable with as a therapist, I would say.
Complete agreement.
Yeah.
Kind of go back to the evolution of Dr. Bryant.
Yeah, totally.
Right? I'm intrigued because as I was doing my research, I came to I was like, yo, why doesn't this is probably the most mysterious, most discreet doctor I've ever seen, because she has so much like, yo, who is she? Has such a following, but no Wikipedia. I found that like so hard. I was like, yo, who doesn't have a Wikipedia? So I'm literally trying to find out certain things because I'm trying to go deep. You said, how deep we gonna go? I said, as deep as the ocean floor.
Yeah.
So that's where I really want to kind of start. Where are you originally from?
I love that. I want to hit on the Wikipedia really quick. I don't have it because years ago, my team was like, let's do the Wikipedia, we got to do this. And my thing, again, was not for me to get into my field or even on TV with Teen Mom and co-produce shows that I produced, to be a celebrity. And I'm not knocking celebrities. I did it again because for me, my purpose is, as a little girl growing up in the inner city, in the hood, to your question, growing up with abandonment issues, growing up with brokenness, and finding my way to use my platform, my books, everything about myself and everyone else's platforms, like your amazing platform, to be able to give those tools and pieces to little girls and little boys like me in the inner city, in the trailer park, I don't care where they are, who are just saying, why me and how, right? How? And so the celebrityness and the Wikipedia meant nothing to me, but the lives that I've been able to change from platforms, from being on TV, from being the president of the biggest and baddest civil rights organization, the kids who have been able to call me and say, Doc, I'm in college, I've graduated, I'm married with a family now, adults who are experiencing suicide ideations and mental breakdowns, who are saying, look, look, I'm not suicidal no more. I sold all my guns. That is my Wikipedia. That is my celebrityness. And that's my bigness for me. And so if Doc don't ever get a Wikipedia, I'm fine. But to that point, because of all the work I've done in the community, because of all the lives that I have happily been, honored and privileged to change, my city, Los Angeles, has given me something that's legacy, that's, I believe, bigger than Wikipedia. My branch and myself and my founder, Joe Gatlin, we have our own street in the city of Los Angeles as a token of their appreciation for me coming in and giving back where I came from and what I've learned in the sense of coming to a place of mental health and coming to a place of a good quality of life. So I'll take that any day. But I'm a little girl, a product of teenage parents. My father was 16, mom was 15 when they got pregnant. And in the inner city, my dad was a hardcore gangster, dope dealer in the streets. He's a founder of one of the biggest Piru gangs in Los Angeles. My mom was also, a gangster in the streets alongside my father. They were high school sweethearts, met at 10 years old. About 2 years old, when I was 2, my dad went to jail for murder and selling dope. And by the time he got out, he beat his case, thank God. By the time he got out, they told my father my mom was selling 8-tracks. And back then, he thought 8-tracks was, she's selling 8-tracks, the record albums. She drops him off to a gym to work out, and she takes his car, and she never returns. He calls his brother, and he says, yo, Kim hasn't came and got me. Is she okay? Where's she at? Come to find out, she wasn't selling 8-tracks. My mom was doing the drug that my father was selling. And so as a little girl, coming from that, growing up with a lot of questions of abandonment, and I even was questioning God, saying, I just don't understand, why. And I know for sure, and it's not just kids that question this, adults also question God with certain situations that they have, especially when it comes to being a child who's experiencing abandonment, who grew up to be an adult, who's now experiencing that little boy or little girl in you who's abandoned. Me asking God, like, why I'm confused, right? And him explaining to me, baby, the only way I can give you an understanding of why is if I give you the experience. And I said, I'm good, because words don't teach, experience does. And so for me, growing up as the oldest of 7, not having anyone in front of me to witness how to do life, how to get through this, I just went into prayer, supplication, and faith in myself and God, and I became very resilient. And at that point, I understood that life was a journey that was about self-growth by self, but about making sure that whatever God moves through me, he gives to me. So I want to make sure that whatever's coming out of me, I want to keep, 1. And 2, that whatever it is that I'm able to resolve or understand, or whatever pain pockets or trauma I'm able to navigate through, that I do have a duty, an unspoken oath, to give that to any human, because it's a human right to have mental health and a good quality of life. And so that's my story in a very, very small shell. There's a lot more to it, but being a broken little girl, when you heal right and when you take the necessary steps to get your trauma in alignment with who you really are, good people come from that. Good people come from that. And so it gave me the ability to see good in people, but be a hybrid and not be naive to, excuse my language, the bullshit that trauma and the inner city and abandonment can create somebody to be if you're not careful with that.
Okay, Siri, stop the clock. Boom, right there. I just asked a simple question.
Yeah, and I gave you a simple answer.
That was not simple. Mm-hmm. That was a lot.
Yeah.
So you're from Los Angeles, California?
I'm from LA.
Okay.
Yeah. I just nipped in all the other questions you was going to ask all in one.
I'm
making your job easier.
Extremely. I was like, I just wanted to know where you was
Yeah.
from. I was just going back to the Wikipedia.
But you should know this, Cam, because I was told you have a great relationship with your father, that asking somebody where they're from is also asking them about who is connected to where they're from. And for me, I stand on the shoulders of my father, Darren, my mother, Kim, my grandfather, Bailey, and my grandmother, Mariah. So for me to say where I'm from without saying me standing on their shoulders is an incomplete narrative. And so I can't say that without saying I come from them, who I'm standing on, and this is the product of it.
I get it.
Yeah.
But I was just trying to.
But we there.
Oh my goodness. What do you think about that? Because I had a million things.
I would say that even I, during that interview, when I first watched it, I was just waiting for the LA part. I really was. I was just wondering when that was going to be mentioned and how it was going to tie into everything that she was saying. So I could imagine if I was sitting there thinking that, I wondered how many other people viewing it was thinking the same thing. And also Cam as well, which he did. But I think what ends up happening is, as a person is talking about their background like she was, depending on how that person is processing what she's saying, they may connect with something she's saying. And then all of a sudden they're like, I'm vibing with that. Yes, exactly. But that wasn't the question that was posed. So that's what I was thinking when I first saw it.
Yeah, I thought, I talked about kind of like being on that, like, kind of like that intellectually superior type of thing. I just noticed how she responded to him. Like, even when he said, I asked you a simple question, I gave you a simple answer. It's very subtle,
Yeah.
but it's a tinge of being combative. And
Yeah.
Whenever I look at people, I always look at people through the lens of personality traits.
Mm-hmm.
And with celebrities in particular, in order to kind of be in that realm, you have to take on a lot of like narcissistic personality traits. And that was something that I really started to see inside of her. His question was, at its basic roots, is where are you from? Her answer went from where are you from to what I've done. She spent the first, I don't know, 5 or so minutes talking about the things that she's accomplished, how great they are. And then even when she goes to her dad, she talks about, the things, whether they're good or bad, the things that he's accomplished and what he's done. And then finally kind of circles back to, okay, this is a little bit about where I'm from. And even inside of that, I wish that one thing I kind of don't like about the field sometimes is that we tend to throw out a lot of buzzwords without context.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start talking about trauma and pain pockets, it's like abandonment.
Mm-hmm.
What did that mean for you in your life? She talked about growing up as a young girl with abandonment issues. What did that actually look like? Because the people are watching are trying to get a feel for who you are, not what you've done. So what did that, we always tend to throw around the inner city and growing up with rough surroundings. What does that practically look like for the people that grew up in that? She could have even talked about some of the science of it, like the heightened cortisol levels because you've encountered so much. You may have encountered a lot of violence, and as a result, you're hyper vigilant. Like, she could have. I just wish she would have talked about where was she truly from. Not, didn't need to be anything like too incredibly personal, but it just seemed like everything was like, well, I was an abandoned little girl, so I had to become resilient. When you heal, right, like everything is being on the other side of the tracks, and none of us are on the other side of the tracks. We all have our own issues. People shouldn't be looking at therapists as the end all be all anyway. We're not supposed to be the model for what healing looks like. We're supposed to help you find what your healing looks like. But it was just, sometimes it's hard to watch. Especially when you're looking at people's personalities and you're seeing just a lot of self-praise, self-congratulations, but it's masked under this community savior type of thing. It's hard to see sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said too, one thing I really like that you said is, like, when you're explaining the words trauma, or you're explaining abandonment issues, it's providing a visualization of what that looks like. Because if you don't do that, which is something that we tend to do a lot in our sessions, is we ask our clients, what does that look like to you? Kind of give me a picture of when you say you were very anxious, I was feeling depressed. Even though we know the technical definitions of those words, we want to hear it from you. How does that look to you? because how I'm interpreting depression or anxiety or trauma or abandonment may look different at the seat that I'm sitting in. So help me explain or help me to understand your definition of it so that we can have almost like a starting point, if you will, and we can kind of go from there. And so I think that was really important too, that when she did not do that, and that's the part that I think I was more so a little disappointed with, when you don't do that, then you leave everything up to a subjective view. Now, everyone is coming up with their own ideas around what this is. And this is when we get division amongst, like our audience. It's because you got some people thinking this over here, some people thinking this over here, when all she had to do was provide an explanation from the beginning and say, this is what I'm speaking on. Now you can relate that to yourself in whatever way that holds true for you. But I know for me personally, this is how I felt abandoned. This is the trauma that I went through. And so I definitely resonate with what you were saying about that as well.
Yeah, I think that her trauma looks different than someone else's trauma, and we can't put it all into this
Right.
all into one bowl.
Yeah.
So her talking a little bit more about her particular trauma and what that looked like, I just thought that would have probably served the audience a little bit better, because these are turned into buzzwords now, unfortunately. So I think the general audience doesn't come away with a kind of a more nuanced understanding of what these concepts are.
For the sake of my cigar, I mean,
It's gone.
yeah, it's about to get there. I just want to ask a simple question.
And it's going to be a simple answer.
Hopefully within the time frame of me smoking this cigar. Do you want to get married?
Hard, yes. Absolutely want to get married.
So my question is, if you've never seen a healthy marriage, how are you able to identify one?
So let me answer again. I didn't grow up in a household where a healthy marriage was something that was present for learned behavior. I am 41 years old. I'm an adult who has done a lot of work. So in today's world, with my work and my healing and my old friends who I have now made new friends, I now have, and I do see healthy relationships.
But none that you want to be like, yo,
no,
I like what y'all have.
Right.
I want to emulate that.
No, and it's not because what they have isn't healthy. It's because I have a strong sense of self. And I'm not knocking people who look to other people and say, I would like that, or I get what you're saying. There's nothing wrong with that. But I have a strong sense of self, and I don't want what someone else has. I want what is aligned in God's will for me is. And so I have a strong understanding that what's for me ain't gonna look like your healthy relationship. And if I get caught up in, I want that, or I want it to mirror that, then I may be looking and meeting my husband saying, you don't fit this box, which is called compartmentalizing. And my husband, who's God sending to me after all my work, doesn't need to fit a box. He needs to come authentically who he is. And my job is to love him where he is, how he is, and pray on the ways that I don't understand, because I'm not supposed to lean onto my own understanding. I'm supposed to trust God in all his ways. And when doing that, that means I'm not looking for anything externally to idolize. When I have myself in God and I know that who my husband is, I will feel it. I don't have to see it in someone else's world. And the other thing is we got to be careful with wanting what somebody else has from the optics, because it could look like we want this beautiful mansion and we go in that house, excuse my language, that motherfucker's more homeless than people who sleep on the street. Because just because you got 4 walls and you have a marble floors and you have a gated home and you have a 10,000 or 20,000 square foot home doesn't mean that thing ain't more homeless than the person who's in a high-rise apartment, or a person who's in a single apartment living in downtown LA and they're a student who's poor. Okay, that has nothing to do with it. So I'd rather have a little apartment with my husband and baby, we got wealth, than be in a big mansion like a lot of people have done and be homeless in that thing. And I'm sitting here creating this image for my people to admire me, but I'm dying in the inside. When you talk about resources and people, I don't want no friends around me who can see me as a mansion, but let me die as a homeless person internally. I'm good. And nor do I want to be the woman who says, I want what Cam and this woman has, not knowing that when this woman goes wherever she's going, she's really speaking the real about what y'all got going, but she's not going to tell me, because she wants me to keep feeding her trauma, which is that mask. and that costume she's wearing to make people think that relationship is good. I'll pass. I'll take what God has for me, and I will continue to pray for those who I see have a healthy relationship and support them. But I don't want nothing nobody has because it's not mine. And if it ain't yours, y'all, you can't keep it. You can't sustain it. So stop wanting things that ain't yours. Stop wanting things that don't belong to you. That's called despair. Get you some help. Get you some healing, get you a sense of self, and start wanting things that are yours. And then you may not end up with a man who's beating your ass because you thought he was putting her on jets and buying her Birkin bags and taking her to nice restaurants when she was going home getting her ass beat. But you wanted it though, right? Be careful what you ask for. Start asking God, reveal to me what I'm saying I want, so I understand the transparency of it. God, reveal to me what's mine, so I can have that. And I don't end up praying to you to get out of it. And I don't rush to the altar just to become a divorcee or a baby mama or a baby daddy.
You want me to start on this one?
It went down a rabbit hole. I really had to catch myself, like, what was the original question? Because I had long since forgotten what it was, because she went into teaching mode. And so the original question was, do you want to get married? Mm-hmm. That question turned into, I've done all this work. I'm such a better person now. So when I do get married, I'm going to pour into the person that I'm with, and you know, things along those lines. The interesting, I think, with her, and I always encourage, people in general to do, is to really do some people watching and learn what are some of the themes that you see from these people, because it tells you a lot about what your personal experience with them would be. So if we're talking about a person who is so giving herself so much self-praise, she's done so much work. Cam asked I think it was a fair question. It's definitely a very pointed and hard question. Like, you're 41 and you're not married. I mean, that's not the end all be all at all, but I just felt like she made it seem as like, now that I'm on this new level, this new plane of existence, now when somebody comes into my life, they need to be ready for me. Or it brought me back to, it's all about me.
Yeah.
That's all I heard in that whole thing.
Yeah. I I'm trying my best to just stay focused without laughing, but it's because it's not funny in that instance, Mm-hmm. But like you said, the question that was posed was, do you want to get married? And it was like, literally, she lit up. She was excited. Of course I want to get married, And then the next question, which I felt was a legitimate question, was, okay, seeing that you told me and you told the viewers that you did not grow up in a healthy environment. You grew up in what you term a broken home. Then how do you know that's what you want? Because of course we know you want a healthy one, because this is what you talk about. So if that's what you want, how do you know that that's possible for you if you've never seen it? And if you think about, when we talk about inner city, a lot of us that grew up in the inner city, a lot of times we did not see healthy environments whatsoever, whether it was in our actual household, whether it was out in the street, whether it was in school, where we did not really get maybe like the education that maybe someone a few blocks down got. So how do you know that you deserve that? How do you know that that's possible if you've never seen it? So I thought it was a very legitimate, both of them, legitimate questions. And I think what I believe when he went into, if you've never seen that, that's when her defensiveness kind of started kicking in, right? Because it's like, now you're putting me on Front Street, you're putting me on blast for something I actually did say. So now somehow I've got to bring it back to, you all don't focus on that. I know what I said earlier, but I got to clean this up a little bit, and that's where maybe the political part of it all started coming in. How do I word this in a way that I draw the people back in? And it really reminded me, and it's no offense against, pastors or anything like that. I grew up in church, and my whole family almost is like clergy. So, but it does remind me of when the pastor kind of is talking, teaching, and maybe it's kind of quiet. but you want to kind of rile that crowd up. So you start, put a little something in your voice. You start singing a little bit. You ask the organist. You give each other eye contact and say, let's cue that organ. Let's get this going, because we got to get people engaged in this thing. And that's when she looked at the camera. She was pointing the finger. She got a little bit more assertive, I guess, in her stance. And she started using even like a tone of voice that brought out a little bit more sass to kind of get your attention. That's that celebrity part again, right? In order to draw people in, it's the theatrics of it all. It's the face, facial expressions, the animation, and to get people invested in this thing so that, we can kind of get some views for this. So that's celebrity part. Yeah. Definitely.
She really set herself up for that because of the way she framed her life. She started off framing her life as everything that she's done, all of her accomplishments, that she didn't need anybody inside her life, that she was her kind of like she was her own hero.
Mm-hmm.
And when he challenged that direct thought, now it's, well, no, I have people in my life. I have people that I look at but don't look up to. That was a really important distinction. It was still keeping that air of superiority. Like, I can look at you and appreciate you from afar, but that's not for me. That's not me. So her themes come up so much. Like, it always brings me back to that theme of running from things. Like, so now I start to think back to like a part of the interview where she said that she left her previous two fiancés. Like that's a serious thing. Like, why wasn't that explored more? Because now you're talking about somebody who has a theme of running from things, and you kind of see her running from questions in certain types of ways and like reframing them into ways that fit her narrative. But what would go on in your life that you would be ready to be married to someone for the rest of your life and have to suddenly leave? I thought that would have been great for the audience to hear, because I'm sure people can relate to that type of stuff.
For sure. And if she would have initiated that first, and that's the thing that I think really would have shown a certain level of healing through those conversations. Like, I want to talk a little bit about where I was at, when it comes to marriage, and what my viewpoints were then and how it didn't quite work out. And this is the thing that I've learned, or maybe this is the thing that I'm still learning. And that produces a certain level of humanity and a relatedness that I think would have definitely drawn even more people in. Because again, people are going to definitely be drawn to the theatrics of it, but then it'll die down. But then if you can come to them from that standpoint, then that's going to produce like more lasting effects, where that may kick in for somebody down the line when they think about that interview and they're like, I remember what this woman was talking about. And I think that's what I'm experiencing. I want to explore that more. That might even encourage them to reach out, for help and to talk with someone about those things. And that's where I felt like that opportunity was missed, with Dr. Bryant.
Yeah. It's really unfortunate. Like, it does really come back to that theme of it's really just everything is about what I've done, and this is more so about my journey rather than speaking to people about what I've been through. So it's in some ways it was a really tough interview, and I really do appreciate Cam's position inside the interview, because even though she went off on like kind of some of these tangents and went into these teaching moments and things like that, I felt like he did a good job of bringing it back to the original question. And you even saw him at times get frustrated that she wasn't actually answering the questions. And her response to seeing him frustrated was a whole nother thing as well. You start to see her body language change. You start to see, you mentioned about the kind of like the tone of her voice becoming a little bit more sassy. Now her whole kind of perspective changes to, how do I protect myself?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. She definitely was on guard, at that time for sure. That wall went up very quickly. And then I think too, what I noticed in that clip is that a lot of times, I think because again, we're trained therapists, so we're trained to hear things a certain way. And we're also trained to look at a person's strengths. So like, even though there may be a lot of people that have followed Cam and they're not too fond of him for whatever reason, that stays in their mind more than looking at the strengths in this video, which you pointed out, the patience. There was patience on his end too, where he did not interrupt her, even though you could tell he's visibly uncomfortable with the fact that this question was not answered. And now this is lingering. I don't know where this is going. So that makes me a little bit like, questioning what's going on with my interview, right? But I'm going to allow you to speak your piece and then I'll come back, with my statement. And so I think a lot of times too, people don't see that part of it, like the strengths perspective, because when we're in a situation where we don't like something or we don't like what someone is doing, we're so honed in on that we can't highlight the areas that they did show up in a way that was positive. And I think that's where the conflict comes in relationships a lot of times too, is that you're not recognizing some of the things I do. Could you at least acknowledge that? And then we can move into some of the areas that you have some struggles with me. So I definitely noticed that a lot, throughout this video.
And that's exactly what she should have touched on.
Yeah.
Was being able to, and that is so true, that this is a problem in so many relationships, is that we have tunnel vision. We start to focus in on the things that we don't like and put so much energy into trying to get somebody to correct behaviors that we don't like, that we're not able to see the good qualities or the strengths anymore.
Yeah.
And that just kind of wasn't, she could have used that. That would have been a really good opportunity to kind of talk about that. But she stayed very narrative focused, inner city and maybe the guy won't beat on you if this isn't happening. Like, these are things that, like, when I heard that, I was like, this sounds like something off a TV show. Like, I started watching this show on Hulu called Reasonable Doubt.
Yeah.
And it is it is a good show. Just seeing the like the personality traits of Jackson Lewis and things like that. Like, when she was talking, it reminded me of that. Like, this, it sounds scripted.
Yeah.
Rather than real life applicable.
Yeah, definitely.
Has your profession affected your outlook on a relationship?
100%.
How?
My husband will be very, very grateful to all of my clients these past 16, 17 years, because my female clients have helped shape me to have more compassion. It has helped shape me to have better understanding of the pressures and the seasons that come in motherhood, that come in marriage. And my male clients, particularly my Black male clients, the married ones, have really gave me insight on the weight that comes with being a husband, being a father, how much they really are giving their all and trying their best, but it looks different to her. And so learning how to read and communicate, Cam, what does it mean when you text me randomly throughout the day and just say, what are you doing? Is that a message? What are you doing? Is that a message where you're just trying to tell me, baby, I love you, but you didn't say the words? So if I know that what are you doing means I love you, as your wife, the Bible says, love you by knowledge of you, not understanding, knowledge. I now know how to code that. So that helps me not personalize, but you ain't doing it my way. But you didn't say, I love you. And you saying, but baby, I say what you're doing, and that means I love you. So my clients have helped me dissipate my ego. And they have helped me not only gain a sense of self, but understand the different languages that men can speak. Also, it's allowed me to have more compassion and break my fairy tale ideology that women have. I always say this: men get married and become a father and go, oh, shoot. Okay, I didn't know it was gonna take all of this. Game time. Let me try to figure this out. Let me try to see if I can do this and do that and get the card and do this and love her more and balance all this. Women, we meet you and we're like, our idea and our fairy tale is you are Prince Charming, honey. And then we try to get you to fit Prince Charming, and the more you don't fit it, the more y'all end up in my office going, but he doesn't do this. Well, has he ever did it? No, but I always just thought my husband would. Your husband or this man? So are you getting to know who you with, Or are you making this man fit this fairy tale ideology that doesn't even exist anyways? And so women come and lead with fit this, or you have no value. Men come in and go, all right, I'm here and I'm gonna learn how to be the best I can for you. And then women do what? You're taking too long. You're not getting there because you haven't fit the box of the fairy tale. So for me, it's helped me break down what all of my clients know. Y'all know I call it the fairy tale ideology. And I'm not exaggerating, Can. I want to say 100%, but I'm going to go 99.9% of women who come in my office, I'm having to work on breaking their fairy tale ideology of their husband. And hold on, let me say this. To his defense, they almost always have an amazing husband. But because his amazingness doesn't fit her idea of amazing, guess what? He ain't shit to her. And remember, have no emotional investment besides I really want them to get this, work through this. I'm going, so because he don't fit your tone of red, you gonna tell me this man still ain't red?
He burgundy though.
You see what I'm saying?
You know, he there.
He always ends on a little joke. But I don't know. I thought I still, even though I know she said a lot of words, right? This time, I do believe she did answer the question, and she actually made a lot of relevant points. And this is just obviously me coming from being an intimacy coach and a couples counselor. So I definitely see what she was saying in regards to the fairy tale ideology and how men typically tend to show up in relationships. It's like, this is what's in front of me. As long as I know that this is what we're doing, then I have like a blueprint and I'm going to follow this. And hopefully this makes you happy. That's it. Right. And that is something that I see often. It doesn't require a lot typically for men, just as long as they know what's expected. If I can meet that expectation, great. I'm going to do it till the wheels fall off. If I cannot, you got to tell me what that is, because I can't do anything without some specifics around what is bothering you. What is it that you need? How can I show up best for you? Whereas a lot of times I do see for women, the struggle happens. It's like cyclical. Some days it's like I'm feeling pretty good and we're connected. Monday, then by Wednesday, I'm a little frustrated. I don't really know if I have any words for you today. And then maybe by Friday, I might be feeling a little good again, but I think I'm gonna go hang out with some girlfriends and then I'll talk to you later. And then maybe on Monday, I'm good again, And so that is something I definitely see. And I think Dr. Bryant did really hit on a lot of key points that I also see in couples counseling as well with my clients too. So I thought that was very beneficial to at least get the wheels turning for women to think about our thought processes and how we show up in our relationships and how men may typically show up. But then the only thing was it almost comes off like a contradiction, if you will, throughout the interview, because some of the things that she was saying, it just makes you wonder, are you also having challenges applying those things as well? And so that's what I noticed from that clip.
What percentage of relationships that you've kind of dealt with would you say have had that fairy tale ideology?
I would definitely say it's a high number. If I had to quantify it, I'm gonna probably say around 80%. And the fairy tale is not necessarily the same for every woman. It can just look very different depending on, their age, their demographic, what their experiences were. Because the range of people I work with is as young as 20 in a couple, all the way up to like 75. So some of the issues that are faced at age 75, and this is you all second marriage, and you got married at 50, is going to look different than the expectations. Maybe I just got out of college, and we're finding ourselves. And so my fairy tale may be based off of what society is like at this time, because I'm 20 in 2024. But then for the couple that's older, they have a different view of what they think they should be doing at age 75. So it really still depends on whatever is going on with that particular couple at that time. But I do see the fairy tale in the sense of usually when the husband or the boyfriend says, this is who I am, this is what I do, they typically show you that. Like it's really it's typically aligned for the most part if you're choosing to pay attention. Now, if he tells you one thing or he's showing you something else, and you say, you know what, maybe I can change that. Maybe it's just going to be like this for this time. That'll change. Then that's where the issues lie, because now you're hoping for something else than what it really is. And I think that's where the fairy tale comes in. Look at it for what it is, not something that you fabricated in your mind.
So would you say that, like, I guess kind of another word for the fairy tale ideology is would also be like dating for potential?
You can say that. You can
Because
definitely.
we definitely see a lot of, I hear a lot of sometimes giving men chances that you normally would not date, or getting with the completely wrong type, liking the guy that's a little bit more rough around the edges, a little bit more defiant, and with the idea that he's going to change this behavior for me because because I'm me.
Yeah.
So I heard a lot of that. I didn't necessarily. I appreciated what she was saying, and there was definitely a lot of truth in what she was saying. But I do also look at it from the standpoint of relationships are very nuanced. Just as women are searching for certain things in their partner and in their men also do the same thing, but it looks slightly different. I have a lot of men that come to my office, and it's some of the most simple problems. She doesn't respect me enough. She, we used to sleep together 2 or 3 times a week. Now I'm lucky if I can get it once a month, because in the beginning, about the butterfly stages of relationships, you're doing everything to the 100th degree. Like, you're being the super attentive, you're being the super intimate and sexual. And now when kind of we peel back the layers and get to who we truly are, now neither one of us look like what we envisioned.
Yeah.
So I definitely I thought that when she was speaking, she was heading towards little elements of like red pill ideology, even though there was definitely truth in what she was saying. But I would think that being in her position, you also have to have the ability to look at the other side of things and not just look at men as these simple creatures that just you feed them and have sex with them, and that's it. Like, men have this intense need sometimes to feel appreciated, to feel respected. Like, it's nuanced. So
Yeah.
I would hope that if she's this big time relationship guru, that like she could speak to the complexity of it, and because of the fact that she's also layering in a lot of like kind of spiritual concepts. So just the way that all those things are playing together. Yeah, I like what she said. She could have gone a little bit deeper into it, but I think overall she was, she gave some nuggets.
Yeah, yeah. And like you said too, if she really would have dived into what it can look like, on both ends, like you said, men do have a desire to be loved, and paid attention to, and adored, I mean, if we're going to go there, but it just may look a little different for him. But it's like, how do I get to the root of that? How do I find out what does that look like for him? And that's where the questions come in, right? It's not the overall blanket statements and the buzzwords. It's actually asking your particular man, what is it that looks like for you? How can I address that, in our relationship? And that's something too that I think in that fairy tale part, like you said, women may not be digging deeper into that side because they're thinking like, okay, he just wants sex or he just wants me to cook for him. But he has this whole other part of him that, he wants you to explore as well. So yeah, I definitely agree with that.
But also some of the things that she's saying goes against her own kind of themes that she's bringing up, if I'm being honest, because there was one part in the show, and I'm not sure if we'll find that part where she mentioned that she doesn't need a man, but she wants a man. And that is a very common thing that I've heard. And for her to be a doctor in doctorate in psychology, you should know the psychology of men. Men need to feel needed.
Exactly.
That is a huge thing. You can ask 90% of men, soon as they hear that I don't need you but I want you, they don't want to have nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
And understanding what that actually means, like feeling needed doesn't mean that you become somebody's slave and that like you can't exist without them. It goes back to the respect and being reaffirming and things like that. So yeah. I don't know if we'll get to that, but that part that reminded me of when she said that.
Yeah. I think we actually will get to that part because it's another clip that kind of I think goes into that. So yeah.
Two things that I really want to ask or must ask in this situation. First, in regards to the women, I don't really want to attack or really speak on your clientele, but obviously with my research, you spoke about low functioning individuals, male and female. What's the percentage of males or females that you counsel that are low functioning? What's that percentage?
I love it. Collectively, or you want me to go male and female?
Break it down from male and female.
Okay. I would say, interesting enough, I would say that there are 70% low functioning women, 40% low functioning men.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, with those low functioning men, did they ever say that a man of high function will never really know true love?
No, I don't even believe that, but no.
Okay. So what identifies a woman to be high functioning?
A high functioning woman is a woman who wants you. She doesn't need you. And let me clear that up. When I say she doesn't need you, it doesn't mean she's independent. That means she is interdependent. I only not need you because my pain doesn't need your pain. My dysfunction doesn't need your dysfunction to feed it for us to be in this relationship, meaning I don't need a trauma bond with you, okay? She wants you because she wants the healed part of you, but has the capacity, because we're all human, we ain't perfect, to facilitate and deal with the unhealed part of you that's gonna show up in the relationship at some point. And hers is gonna show up too, mine is gonna show up too. And so that's why I always say, I want a hybrid. I want a hybrid for y'all out there who wanna know, meaning a man who's high functioning enough to meet my healthy high functioning, but low functioning enough to deal with me when my abandonment inflames, to deal with me when some of my dysfunctions that I'm still working on inflame. Because if he's too high functioning, guess what? He doesn't have the bandwidth to deal with the low functioning part, which then means he can only connect with folks who are not being fully authentic within themselves. Meaning you may have a loving relationship, but you won't have a real intimate, deep, vulnerable relationship. I'm a woman who seeks connection and vulnerability. I'm not into casualties or casual sex, just TMI or not, meaning I like the depth of things. And so I need you to see me. I need you to see my broken. I want you to see my heart, whatever that comes with, and I'm not embarrassed about it. I'll tell you about it, I'll show it to you, and I'm okay with a man who can facilitate it. But what a high functioning man may do is if he's all the way high functioning, he has already cut off the side of him that is authentic, and there's a superficialness there that won't allow him to connect with a real person. So can he still love and experience love? Yeah, love has it just loves everything. But will he experience the depth of some of the wholeness of love, meaning the down, the up, the ugly, the heaven, the hell mom was talking about? No. And let me say this really quick. And this is why trauma bonds usually feel like the most intense, in love, deepest relationships, because you got two at the epitome of vulnerability, pain pocket people who are bonding. And most people who are low functioning are exactly who they are. Exactly who they are. Doesn't make it bad for being who they are. Exactly who they are. That's their pain, their trauma. They gonna flee, they gonna scream, they gonna hit, they gonna do whatever comes up. Right? Fuck it, I'm mad. Whatever comes up, they there. There's no awareness, there's no stop, there's no nothing. I'm triggered, I'm inflamed, we just go to tear this thing up. Right? High functioning only means, Cam, that I feel them same feels. I still feel, excuse my language, you got me fucked up. I'm ready to go there. I'm flamed, I'm triggered. It's all there, right? But it's still dormant. It's still in me. And high functioning means I can regulate those emotions. Watch this and say, okay, right now I'm ready to rip this man's head off. Right now he got me all the way fucked up. Okay, so how do I relay that message to him where it's gonna be respectful, it's gonna be non-combative, and I'm gonna disarm him while he still knows you got me fucked up? Because I don't have to say those words for you to know, I think I went too far with Doc. And you still feel respected and loved, so that I just disarmed you and we can still have an engaging, emotionally intelligent conversation that ends in resolve, whether resolve means win-win, because resolve is really win-win, or one person wins or none and we agree to disagree and we can still go to the cigar lounge and have a drink and you have your cigar. But low functioning people gonna tear this thing up with no emotional regulation. They're also gonna choose a person who does it with them and allows them to do it. Because I only can do to you what you allow me to do. Because if I start cutting up in here and you say, Doc, we love you, love to have you here, but you gotta go and you're not welcome back, is no pun intended, that's not our culture here. Guess what? I can't do that again. And that's not called fleeing. You emotionally, intelligently said, Doc, love you here, you're a great guest, but that's not our culture. We don't do that here.
Okay, so
You want this one?
So, I would say out of the entire interview, this is where my personal patience started running a little thin. So I know that there were a lot of times earlier in the interview, there was a lot of word salad, on her part. But I can sit through that. I can sit through it and I can sift through it. But this is where it really, really fell flat for me. And I've mentioned this before in another video myself, is that, again, with the title, and I'm just going back to the title of a doctor of psychology, a therapist. I'm not talking about the life coaching part, because I know she mentioned she's a life coach too, but she made that very clear about her position and her background, her credentials. A doctor of psychology, I cannot ever see them talking about a woman wanting a man but not needing them and identifying that as high functioning. And just because, and again, I really think if she would have just premised it first and say, when he was asking her, what describes a high functioning woman, she should have said, and this is again my professional opinion on this one, just address the audience by saying, for the sake of this particular conversation, I am going to identify high functioning as this. But I do want you all to understand that the technical, definition of high functioning and low functioning typically refers to the autism community. Mm-hmm. That's it. And so, but how I'm going to speak to you all is going to be in this respect. So I just want you all to understand. So, if you're going around using that word, I just want you to be fully aware of, that word's true meaning. But for the sake of this video, let's talk about it, in this way. And then she can kind of break down a little bit more of how she came to this conclusion of a woman, wanting you but not needing you. Again, like you said, a lot of buzzwords, a lot of just kind of like societal jargon, social media jargon that really just doesn't have that much meaning to it. We're just putting this meaning to it. So I felt like her credibility for me just really, really took a deep dive. And so that's when it was really hard for me to honestly take this part of the interview seriously. And I still remained, in terms of supportive in the other areas that she was speaking on, because there were some things that she touched on that I think were very important. And I think that made a lot of sense. And I think it aligned with what it was that she was actually trying to communicate. I do believe that. But that area, like I said, you got one shot. And once you get out there and you start telling people these things, and people are looking to you because you're the celebrity. So they're going to actually look to you as an expert because you're a celebrity first, and they're not going to look at you as an expert first, celebrity first. And because they're hanging on to your every word, you could actually cause more damage, than good by not being very clear on these technical terms and what they really mean. So that part for me was a struggle. Yeah.
But no, you are so incredibly. When I heard high functioning and low functioning, I was like, what is that? Like that, my mind went to like, she's talking about like high value men and low, like it was going to different places, because I personally hadn't heard it, and like you, I've heard it in the context of the autism spectrum. So to me, I definitely don't think that she should have done that. The other thing is that she drew relations things in an improper context.
Yeah.
She talked about trauma bonding, but she related trauma bonding to the idea of needing someone versus wanting someone. I don't think those two things go to hand in hand. When you talk about trauma bonding, you're going more into the lanes of codependence,
Exactly.
into attachment issues.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
you're heading down those lanes. It doesn't have to do with the need versus a want. So I think that she muddied the water when it came to that.
Yeah.
Because like I mentioned before, like men need to be needed. Otherwise they don't have a purpose, and that's not a bad thing. And I think because she's going based off of societal terms, societal norms, the social media age, that she's taking these concepts and these buzzwords and of the independent woman, don't need you but I want you, and she's applying it into clinical areas. And as a result, she's exactly like you said, she's losing credibility in those areas. I'm really curious as to how the larger therapist community even even understood what she was saying and what she was doing, because I can't see anybody that would have gone along with that. And that's kind of a problem when you're a doctor of psychology and also a life coach. You have to have clear distinctions on what that is and what that means. I just got done dealing with another social media influencer who was pretending to be a therapist, but she calls herself a mental health life coach. And she was online giving men, a guy had called into her stream and disclosed a past history of abuse when he was a child. And her not knowing what she's doing, knowing what she's talking about, she in that stream told him, you need to go confront your abuser. Insane. Like and so this is what we're starting to see is that we're having so much crossover. I have no problem with like LCSWs that go into life coaching room, because all of the tenets, all like the areas of the the domains.
Right.
It's not the same if you were just a life coach.
Yeah.
And I'm really disappointed that her as a doctor is muddy in that water.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, there's a cap. I really believe there's a cap when you are, and when I say cap, like not no cap, but like there's a cap off when you are a coach without, clinical background, because there's only so far you can really go. Because I even think about the example you presented in regards to being abused and confronting your abuser. There are still ways to even address that without confronting the abuser, and there's a strategy or a therapeutic, intervention, which is therapeutic writing, where you can write a note to the abuser or whoever has, basically taken advantage of you or, in a very vulnerable state. and you don't have to ever give it to them, but you can get the words out, you can process it. And so it's like that cap off again. Like, you may have thought that it was okay to confront that abuser, but there's another intervention that possibly could have been, shared with that particular person. And so I definitely understand what you're saying. And that's why I said the credibility that she had at that point, at least until that point, it was tough for me. It was tough for me to watch. And I agree. I really started thinking about, did any other, and I'm pretty sure other therapists and social workers and psychologists watch this video as well. And I think because we live in this world so much and we work in this world, not to say that we don't have time to address that, but to some degree, we're in the trenches. So we're doing this stuff every day. So we're not necessarily looking to go back and forth with people who are presenting in that way, because we're like, maybe you actually don't fit over here. So we're not going to even concern ourselves. We're going to focus on the fact that we need to work with people who are desiring this particular service. And so I'm wondering if that's a big reason why maybe we haven't seen a lot of commentary, what have you, from a lot of therapists, because we're literally doing the work every single day. So.
Yeah. And I think another reason too, besides doing the work, being in the trenches, is always finding that balance of how much is too much to share.
Yeah.
What, how can you talk about something while separating your personal opinion from your professional opinion to, making sure that people know that you're not giving them clinical advice. Like, I'm starting to see now why a lot of therapists kind of stray away from the online world, because it gets muddy really, really quick. Yeah. But she's embracing it and doing well inside of it. But, it's not necessarily helping a lot of people.
Yeah. And that's a good point too, like you said, as far as the boundaries. I always speak about the difference between me being in my therapy sessions as opposed to intimacy coaching sessions and what that entails. And I'm very specific in my contracts with coaching what this looks like and what this is not, what to expect, what not to expect. But it's very important that that's very much made clear. And even when I'm sharing content online, I do more so from the coaching perspective. I feel that I can be able to share different tidbits, and it's more like solution-based, if you will. It's pretty quick. It's kind of like, this is something that I have some concerns about. We can talk about briefly and then send you on your merry way. Whereas therapeutic models, we understand that this can take years sometimes to dig deep and uncover and to work through. And that's something that I feel, for me professionally, I like to keep that offline. I really do. And I like for clients to know that, my therapist is not going online and speaking on different things that are my story. So definitely, I totally align with what you're saying there.
What identifies as a broken home?
What you have going on with whoever you're not in the house with is a broken home. It's called a blended family. It's called a blended family.
That means?
That the family is blended. So blended
means broken?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So the guy that you were entertaining, you would go as low as 26.
That I would entertain?
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
And as high as what age?
Whatever man that doesn't have kids.
As high as?
Whoever doesn't have kids, whatever age he is with no kids.
I just.
No, that's the age. I'm saying I don't have an age range as far as how old, if he has no kids.
So your non-negotiable is a person who does not have children?
My non-negotiable is a person with kids, but yes, I get how you're saying it, yes.
So you cannot date a person, you cannot be with a person? I
can, but I'm choosing not to.
So?
I can be with anyone, but I'm choosing not to. I gotta correct it, it's my narrative, Cam.
You're jumping in, jumping out, it's either.
Cam. No, it's not I can't. There's no such thing. I can date whoever I want. I am definitely well equipped to do so. Okay. So I'm not going to allow that word to be something that fits what I can't do. I'm well equipped to date anybody. Yes. My preference, because there's nothing wrong with a lot of men who have kids, so I don't want to put that narrative out there. Yes. My personal preference is I would not choose to date a man with kids.
Okay.
Yes.
So you're dating a man with kids. Just a scenario.
Oh, okay, got it. Yes.
You're dating a man with kids.
Yes.
So you've identified that that's a broken home from the jump with your verbiage of blended family means broken.
I've identified that I'm dating a broken man who is creating who he is, because we could teach what we know, we create who we are. And so broken people create brokenness, whether it's through a child, whether it's through a relationship, whether it's through themselves. It doesn't have to be a beautiful baby, but you're creating brokenness. And broken people can come from married households. I'm not saying that a two-parent household can't create the result of a child who then has brokenness and creates broken blended families everywhere. I'm not negating that.
That's not my point.
No, I know, I'm making that point. But yes.
But my point.
My answer is, I not only identified that those homes are houses without a home because he's not in them,
Yeah.
but also that he's a broken man.
But you're going to be with a broken man.
No, I won't. I just said I wouldn't be with a man. I wouldn't be with a broken man who has multiple kids. I would
No, not multiple. I'm
well,
talking
a kid. It doesn't matter.
So you're not going to date a man with children.
No, but let me clear this up, because you said I won't date a broken man. That's not what I said.
No, I said, are you, listen to what I'm saying.
I heard you. Let me answer it. Hold on. We all have a level of brokenness. So will I date a broken man? Yes. Am I going to date a certain type of brokenness? No.
Of course you're not.
And that type of brokenness is a man who has kids outside of me isn't something that's conducive for what I want forever.
But will you date him?
No.
So that goes to my point. I'm trying to ask a question. You have two different men right here. One man who has...
I will not date a man with kids.
Okay, that's all I'm asking.
Yes. I will
But
not.
do you understand, just off of the statistics...
Here we go. Go ahead and be a statistic and say it, because I hear it all the time. And
What?
say it.
You say what you're saying, and I'm going to either...
Based on statistics, most men have kids. Go for it.
At your age.
But that's why I said early on, Cam, when you said young and remember the patience of me being older woman, I said, well, for, a woman who has certain qualifications or criterions like no kids, that would be, I have to have enough brain cells to know, baby, that's the payoff. Okay, he may be younger, successful, no kids, but now you have to make sure you implement the patience. Or you get you an older man who has kids, and he could have been married with his kids. There's a lot of different scenarios why men have kids, okay? But then you don't have to have as much patience with him as maturity-wise. But do you want to have patience to say, and it's not even dealing with, because that's not bad, you want to have enough patience to gut the fact that you are dating a man with young kids or grown kids, and that's against what you want, your value system. For me, I rather choose the poison of, I'll have patience with you, baby. We'll just have to figure this out, and I'm cool with that, and we'll have a good time in the meantime. Then I know that you have kids. It's against something I never wanted as a child. And now, if you have young kids, I'm going to be very involved because I'm a loving woman. I'm never going to take
But you're giving a scenario that you're saying...
Yeah, that wouldn't do. Right, and those are the reasons why I wouldn't do them.
For sure.
I do want to start off by saying, if I was on an interview like that as a intimacy coach, I probably still wouldn't do it, but I would probably be a little bit more comfortable having an alcoholic beverage in that space as opposed to if I was coming on as a therapist. I just wanted to put that out there first. Because again, we talk about the parameters, and when you're drinking and what can happen when you're drinking, and conversations can go a different way. Because this is where I just felt like this is where the interview was sinking, like fast, because the comparison between broken homes and blended homes was just not okay. And again, when we think about broken homes, we're talking about a home where people are divorced, separated. That's it, And so when we start talking about blended families, obviously we're bringing two families together, but those two families, they could be married. Then that's no longer a broken home. And so that's where it's things like that. That's like, we're not saying what this really is. And so we're confusing people. And because a lot of people are typically confused by these types of interviews, then they're just going to kind of roll with the punches of what sounds good. And that's dangerous. And so I would definitely say that part, I think it just was the nail in the coffin for me. I was just like, no, no, this is not okay. So yeah, that's just my quick analysis on that. I don't want to sit on that one too long, but that was just my thought process.
Yeah, no, that one really bothered me because, anybody in this field knows blended is not broken. Blended is blended.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah, there is no way you can draw that distinction. Like, just because you did not work out in your first marriage and you have kids and now you've remarried and you have a blended family, that means you are a broken man because that happened. Just like not even taking into account reasons for the divorce or separation, whether it could be through loss or anything.
Yeah.
So that was just a really irresponsible way of framing what she did. So based on everything that I've seen from her, to me, she fits this trend of social media personalities that I guess is the kind of like the boss woman type of thing, to where I'm not sure if you've seen this trend of older women, successful women, dating or marrying or having children by these young, successful athletes without children and having children by them.
Mm-hmm.
When she talked about her age range for a 40, is she 46?
41. Mm-hmm.
For 41-year-old woman, what's she doing with a 26-year-old young man?
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't. But when you talk about wanting somebody that, based on her personalities, there's so much self-love and self-praise. It seems like, to me, she would need to kind of be with a person. When you have those types of personalities, those out there personalities, and the focus is always you tend to get with people that are much more reserved.
Yeah.
I end up seeing people that have really low self-esteem getting with these types of people because they represent this mother type figure or something to aspire to. So young men that don't, aren't really securing themselves will end up getting with these types of women. But it seems like that's what, if she was to ever be in a successful relationship, it would have to mirror something like that. It would have to be somebody that's more reserved, that doesn't, of course, doesn't have the kids, that doesn't, may have, issues of self-esteem or whatever it may be. But in real life, in just practical terms, no, that doesn't fit the mold of the population at large. And I don't think that that's something that should be promoted. So just as she came at Cam for, having children with different women, she should also do some self-reflection on herself and realize some of the incongruencies that she was presenting. Like that part turned to be completely off from her.
Yeah. And that was a really good observation in terms of when you have someone in a position of, power, influence, notoriety. Typically, in order for a relationship to be successful, when you have a person of that stature, like to that magnitude, typically you don't see both people in that role. That's why they come up with the next buzzword, which is the power couple, right? And that's also being pushed as well. But you rarely see that typically plays out in the best interest of both people. One person typically is going to be in that limelight and getting all of that attention and focus on them, while the other person plays a background role, until that background role person decides, I don't want to be in the background anymore. And now we see that conflict happens. Or you find that person, specifically more so when a woman is in a position of power to that magnitude and a man is in the background, then sometimes she finds that now I'm frustrated with him not stepping up to the plate. Why is he not a leader? And now there's a conflict again. And so we talk about broken homes. We start talking about like conflict like that. Then we start seeing, the demise of a relationship. And don't let kids be involved, because now there's a custody battle. And now we're trying to focus on who's going to get what money and what's going to be divvied up. So when we talk about broken homes, there you have it. That could be a broken home right there. So it's definitely a lot of ways, to look at that. But I think a big one that maybe, I don't know how many people really observe that, but again, to be 41 and a woman and to be possibly desiring, because I mean, again, her face said it all when she started talking about dating a younger guy. There was a level of excitement there. And that excitement to me seemed more so, how can I have my way in this position? And a lot of it might be, sexual, of course, because we're talking about the physicality, of men and women. And as we age, we're all aging. Every single day we're aging. The body is not going to be what it was when it was younger. And so if you're trying to get some things, going, you might be appealed to that, and you might think about, yes, I can probably have him do some of the things that I want him to do. He's not going to be argumentative. He doesn't have that much life experience. So what I tell him, he may hold as truth. And because I have the money and I'm in that position of power, he's going to follow suit, especially if he still wants to be here. So I think these are logical explanations we're discussing. This isn't just something we're pulling out of the sky. We're talking logically how this could possibly play out if that's what you're desiring, but it doesn't add up. It's very contradictory to what you've been saying all along about healthy relationships and what you want.
Yeah, it was so disingenuous, especially like when he was trying to get the basic, answer out of her. Because in no reality is she going to get with an 80-year-old man that doesn't have children.
Right.
So obviously she's going to have to go for a younger man, and it does have this air of like, I hate to say it, but to a certain extent, a little bit of grooming. Is this nurturing type of relationship where I can mold him into what I want him to be. And you were so right when you talk about where the problems come in, because that's exactly 26 years old. That's a lot of men are kind of starting to get into their own skin, developing their own identity, and it's into the later years, into 30s, late 30s, where you really got a firm grasp on what you're doing. She's basically turning this person into what I want him to be. But the problem is, once he develops his own identity, once he develops his own sense of self, his own confidence, there's going to be friction. There's going to be, well, I want to be the leader of the house. I want to have some agency in decisions. And so it doesn't, even with her, stating kind of her preferences on how young she would go, it doesn't tend to work out, in the long run. It just doesn't.
It's just logical.
Yeah. I mean, these celebrities, I have such a hard time following these celebrities and their ideologies and thinking that they know what's best for the masses.
Yeah.
She's just another example. She reminded me a lot of like personality wise, she reminds me of like an Amanda Seales and like a Meek Grimes, like those types of personalities. But she's a character. I still tip my hat off to Cam, because that level of patience is not easy, especially when you got somebody that's like taking subtle digs at you, and to attack him on, creating broken homes, like that could have went left quick.
Oh yeah. I definitely felt that there was borderline fighting words that were kind of coming out. Like you say, you're at my space of my podcast, and I'm inviting you. And like I said again, at the beginning, the introduction I thought was very appropriate. I thought it was very respectful of her, and what she's accomplished. So I thought he opened it up in a way that I'm here to have a conversation. I want to learn. At least that's how it was presented to me. I really did not see combativeness or, like I said, a sarcasm at the beginning. I really didn't. It was just like, let's talk about this. I almost kind of thought he was saying, how have I not heard about you? Because you have so much, that you've accomplished. I want to know why I haven't. So if you could share that with me. But that's what I heard. So.
Yeah, same here. It's a great interview. Show I love people watching, and I love seeing these unique personalities and how they how they play out. So
Yep.
she's definitely another lesson learned.
Yes, definitely.